Hey guys, we're spending the evening out here trying to do a little scouting there, see if we can't pick up on a big mature deer. And I wanted to kind of talk about how we start and finish patterning a deer into a successful harvest. So our very first thing is we've got to identify a deer that has got daylight activity or close to daylight activity. So first I'll start off with just as the easy one, the daylight activity. So if you do have a buck that you're wanting to harvest there and he is a daylight mover, that is step number one, and it's extremely promising on the ability to harvest that deer. I'll walk through some scenarios there. I had a buck back in 2016. He ended up being a 151-inch 8-point, 5.5 years old, and he came through a week prior to me harvesting him on a September cold front, and I just so happened to get a trail cam picture of him. And I went in there and checked that card, saw him there, and then as soon as I figured that out, I went back on the weather pattern and figured out, hey, that was a morning that there was a tremendous drop in temperature. So I looked in the forecast to identify to see if there was any cold fronts going to be like that, similar within the 10 to 14 day weather forecast, and there was. So that following Thursday, I ended up going in there in the morning, ended up catching that deer, same pattern. He came right back in. He was about 18 yards away from me, and I center punched him right there, double lunged him. The deer ran 15 yards to the south, 10 yards back to the east, east, yeah, and he laid dead behind me about 15 yards. So that was one of the awesome, probably the coolest hunts that I've had when it comes to actually successfully patterning a deer and move on. You know, I've had several other 150-inch class deer that I've had success with patterning and harvesting them, but we'll move on to the strategy there. So in modern days time, scouting is awesome, being able to glass the fields with a spotting scope or binoculars, whatever you got there. But also the use of cellular trail cameras. When it comes to those big mature deer, you do not want to push them any more than what you need to. You want to try to get in there, harvest the deer, and get out. And those cellular trail cameras have played a huge role for myself as well as many others. Here in the last 7-8 years since they've really started picking up on popularity. And I just can't say enough about the black flash and the cellular aspect from being non-intrusive. If you do have the ability to, you're starting to get trail cam pictures of a deer, but maybe he's right there 10 to 15 minutes before daylight, wait until that next front, then go in there and try to harvest that deer. And I think you'll find that will pay off. It may not be every single time, but it'll be a lot better for you to wait until that front hits than actually just go in there, bust that deer out, and not even have a chance at harvesting him any longer. So number one is having the deer that's moving during the daylight. Number two is having the deer that you can actually pattern. And what I mean by that is if you've got something that is between the bedding and the food, wherever he's feeding that, acorns, soybean fields, corn, your food plot, whatever it is, try to isolate that middle area there and try to catch that deer coming either to the food in the evenings or coming back into the bedding area in the mornings. Then once you get that deer pattern, your next steps are extremely crucial. You're going to need to make sure that you have got your wind direction right, your thermals right, you're able to get in and out without busting a whole lot of deer. And then the other thing is, if some of the best bucks that I've harvested and the easiest ones, I'll go ahead and say easy, none of them are easy to harvest, but the ones that I've successfully harvested quickly within the season are the ones that I feel like have had a tight home range, and I'm able to identify very quickly my target areas, jump in there very quietly, not have to push a whole lot of deer out, and then be able to harvest that deer in a timely manner. So hopefully this helps you guys out in regards to being able to pattern mature deer. A few examples of how I've been successful with this, and like always, hopefully you guys are getting out there in nature, and best luck on your upcoming hunt.